the pineal gland. Quote, in this particular body through which this, then, at present, is emanating, the gland with its thread known as the pineal gland is the channel along which same then operates. And with the subjugation of the consciousness, physical consciousness, there arises, as it were, a cell from the creative forces within the body to the entrance of the conscious mind or brain, operating along or traveling along that of the thread or cord, as when severed separates the physical, the soul, or the spiritual body. Keep the pineal gland operating and you won't grow old. You will always be young. Edgar Cayce. Throughout the ages, the pineal gland has been assigned a spiritual role that transcends its hormonal function. For centuries, the pineal gland has been associated with paranormal phenomenon. Eastern philosophies have tended to view the pineal as an important chakra or energy vortex, which, if activated, opens the individual to psychic experiences and cosmic vision. The pineal gland, the epiphysis cerebri, is considered the most powerful and highest source of ethereal energy available to humans. It is a peculiar gland situated between the cerebral hemispheres and attached to the third ventricle. It has long been recognized as initiating psychic powers, such as clairvoyance and seeing auras. To activate the third eye and perceive higher dimensions, the pineal and the pituitary gland must vibrate in unison, which is achieved through meditation, chanting, and even sungazing. In our physical body, Eastern masters have long recognized the connection between heaven and earth as being within our third eye center. During meditation, the practitioner is sometimes able to visualize that eye, a single eye, just like our regular eyes, but just one single eye within our brain. It is also called the mind's eye, the spiritual eye, or the semi-inner eye, the wisdom eye, and the heavenly eye. A mass activation of the pineal gland is a key point in the next stage of human evolution, yet an awakened population is not what the current control group on Earth wants or needs, and they will suppress this expression at any cost. After all, the union with God was considered blasphemy in the Christian West for 1,000 years, even punishable by death under the Inquisition. As we have seen, sacred geometry and sacred symbols are the study of shape and form, wave and vibration, and are tools for moving beyond our third dimensional reality. They are literally the language of creation, which exists as the foundation of all matter and can be the vehicle for spirit. These sacred shapes have been called the blueprint for all creation, the harmonic configuration of the soul, and the divine rhythm which results in manifest experience. They do much more than give us an insight into the workings of the universe and a pattern for all life. Sacred geometry, intricate patterns, and symmetrical symbols assist in opening the pineal gland. They have an additional benefit to the human body. In addition to their ability to balance human energy fields, each may contain complex information systems that can be used to access healing and growth in many dimensions. But the government is not going to tell you that, nor will the corporate-owned media. They prefer dummied down masses who are easily controlled and not an enlightened group of people who have learned the mastery of the most enigmatic powers available to the human brain. Awakening to the grand secret of the universe is created by a thought consciousness primary tool for this awakening. It is through the activation of the pineal gland. Though consciousness manifests in a physical reality through a geometric blueprint that we call sacred geometry, whose subliminal meanings assist in activating the pineal gland, sacred geometry is indeed the most practical of all sciences, for through its comprehension, we become empowered to create interdimensional structures on the physical level that vibrate with spiritual energy and a consciousness of source. Sacred geometry, like nothing else I've ever seen, observed Karen Pryor, has the ability to inspire awe and awaken a very real experience of the world behind the curtain of creation. The pineal gland is a primary gateway to this expanded consciousness. Pineal gland suppression. The active suppression of the pineal gland is one of the biggest conspiracies in the modern age, one which no one knows about. The toxic chemical sodium fluoride, even in weak concentrations, is very damaging and destructive to cellular tissue. Multiple studies show it actually lowers people's IQ scores. Up until the 1990s, no research has been ever conducted to determine the impact of fluoride on the pineal gland. It is now known that the pineal gland is the primary target of fluoride accumulation within the body. A level of 300 parts per million of fluoride is capable of inhibiting enzymes. Studies have recently revealed that the soft tissue of the adult pineal gland contains more fluoride than any other soft tissue in the body. MRI scans clearly show a calcified and inactive pineal gland in most Americans tested. People are starting to demand that fluoridation of our drinking water be stopped. It has nothing to do with preventing cavities and everything to do with mass medication without consent. Our government has known for a long time that sodium fluoride is poisonous to mammals, and they know it collects around the pineal gland. Fluoride is an extremely neurotoxic chemical which is intentionally added to drinking water and thus interrupts the basic function of nerve cells in the brain, causing docile submission behavior and IQ devastation. However, in classic doublespeak, we are told that fluoride is put in our drinking water because it is good for the teeth, when in fact it creates weak and brittle bones, causing dental cavities and fosters tooth decay in adults. Fluoride comes from hydrofluoric acid, and it will be examined further in the final chapters of the control section. For now, it is important to know that fluoride is an accumulative and toxic poison that shuts down the pineal gland, and it has been forced into public water supplies worldwide, especially in the USA. The pineal gland, arguably the most important gland in our body, controls thinking, emotions, hormones, creativity, intuition, and much more. It is such an important gland that it is often referred to as the third eye, but it can be retarded and even cease functioning with fluoride accumulation. The adepts knew. The pineal gland is a small gray gland about the size of a grain of rice, which is situated between the two hemispheres where the spinal cord reaches up into the brain. A tree-grown pine cone has the same basic shape as the pineal gland, hence the name. The location of the pineal gland is very close to the geometric center of the brain. Amazingly, the pineal gland has been depicted in ancient Sumerian, Egyptian, and Babylonian artifacts and paintings, which means that our predecessors were aware of its relevance. As far back as 2180 BCE, Egyptian pharaohs were using shefa food to enhance their pineal activity and thereby to heighten their perception, awareness, and intuition. The pineal gland has long been called the seat of spirituality and divine wisdom. The ancient Egyptians wore crowns that feature a snake or twin serpent protruding from the third eye area of the crown. To the ancient people of Egypt, snakes denoted wisdom. That could be why in Matthew 10:16 of the Bible, we are admonished to be as wise as serpents. Egyptian Queen Cleopatra used to place a magnet on her forehead to stimulate the pituitary, to restore her youthful vigor and enhance her beauty. She never knew that she already had a magnet in her head called the pineal. In Eastern traditions, the awakening of our third eye is achievable through the practice of yoga, particularly Kundalini yoga, that teaches of the existence of the so-called Ajna chakra, or third eye chakra. The double serpent represents the Kundalini energy extending through the pineal gland. Kundalini in ancient Sanskrit means illumination or enlightenment, and refers to the light that a practitioner experiences when awakening the third eye. This process allows a person to remember who he or she is and fosters communication with their soul within. The Ajna chakra is the location of the third eye, which is the source of consciousness. The two physical eyes see the past and the present, while the third eye reveals the insight of the future. The word ajna means command, in the sense of the guru's command or spiritual guidance. In Western occult and New Age thought, the Ajna chakra has been identified with the third eye, or the eye of psychic vision, in an enlightened sense, and other such concepts not found in the original Tantrika system. Master Guide Carrel noted, quote, "When you bring the energy down into the pineal gland from the crown chakra, it touches something in there that we will call the master blueprint or the God cell that is in direct contact and communication with the 70 trillion cells in your body," end quote. The pineal gland is the true master gland. As noted, it is situated between the eyes. It is the origin of clairvoyance, the eye of Ra or Heru, God in Egyptian traditions. To Buddhists with two eyes closed and practice, it is possible to open the third eye, the dot often represented on the Buddha's forehead, to see our spiritual inner self or soul within. It secretes melatonin, which is anti-aging in effect and an antioxidant in nature. This secretion of melanin also assists in coloring our skin. Pineal study in the West. The pineal gland, the most enigmatic of the endocrine organs, has long been of interest to Western autonomists. Long ago, it was thought to be a value that controlled the flow of memories into consciousness. Now it appears that the pineal gland is really a signal transducer, just like the retina of an eye. But why would an internal organ close to, but not part of the brain, be photosensitive if there is nothing for us to see? It was French novelist Marcel Proust who said, quote, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new lands, but seeing with new eyes," end quote. Our intuition is enlivened, and perhaps, as Plato says, the soul's eye must be purified and kindled afresh. Quote, "For it is by it alone that we contemplate the truth. Perhaps there is a pattern in the heavens for one who desires to see it, and having seen it, can find it in himself," end quote. Such platitudes seemed unrealistic, and even Plato's students doubted their master's wisdom. "You amuse me," said Plato, "you who think I am imposing impractical studies upon you, like geometry. Yet it is through these studies that the eye of the soul is awakened," maintained Plato, "and that this extra eye is worth more than 10,000 regular eyes." Greek philosophers, such as Plato and others, believe the pineal gland to be our connection to the realms of thought. The Neoplatonic philosopher Symbolism repeats the statement of Plato that the study of the science of numbers tends to awaken that organ in the brain, which the ancients described as the eye of wisdom, the organ now known to physiology as the pineal gland. René Descartes, the French philosopher born in 1650, who resided most of his life in Holland, was heavily influenced by the writings of Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle. He spoke of the pineal gland as being the seat of the soul. He believed it to be full of animal spirits, brought to it by many small arteries which surround it. The pineal gland, as described by Descartes, is the focal point of our spiritual guiding system that moves us beyond the five senses of rationality to become multi-sensory and tuned into and aware of higher dimensions of consciousness within a holographic cosmos. Descartes described the pineal gland and its physiological reaction to the brain in his 1644 Principles of Philosophy of Light. Quote, "The lines of sight depicting binocular vision, observed and compressed by the eye's particles, are processed by the pineal gland, which in turn manipulates the fluids in the control of nerves and muscles," end quote. Other philosophers believed it is the centrum that carries the life code and conveys orders to the body. Recent academic studies have found that the pineal gland contains light-sensitive cells that function like those of the eye's retina, testifying to the fact that the pineal gland can actually see, giving it quite literally third eye status. The pineal gland was found to react to light, and this suggests that the gland can somehow sense changes in the outside world without having direct contact. Another theory proposes that because the structure of the retina and the pineal gland are similar, perhaps the pineal consists of a variety of genes that are only expressed in the eye. Therefore, the pineal gland has photoreceptors and a complete system for optical transduction. In other words, there is some light communication highway to the pineal gland. But what is it? Perhaps there is a secret, unknown, or invisible passageway that allows the mammalian pineal to detect light directly. This is something that has vexed philosophers and researchers for centuries. In 1918, Niels Holmgren, a Swedish autonomist, also referred to the pineal gland as the third eye because he discovered cells that looked very much like retina cone cells in the tip of the gland in frogs and dogfish sharks. So if animals can utilize their pineal gland, why not humans? Recent discoveries have found that the pineal gland in the Western fence lizard contains a photoreceptive element that protrudes from the top of its head. Some researchers describe the third eye as simply the thalamus, not the pineal or pituitary. However, the pineal is the male aspect, where the pituitary is the female aspect. Pine cone imagery. The horn of the unicorn emerging from the forehead likely represents the pineal gland or third eye. And this may be the reason why it is connected with ancient cults as an enlightened animal or magical spirit. The pineal gland is supposed to secrete a resin in all mammals, and this resin is known as the blood or life of the pine tree. The world's myths and traditions offer a fertile source of information about human evolution and the third eye. Many of us have heard about the one-eyed giant Cyclops monster in Greek mythology who fights with Ulysses, or the mystical eye of Shiva, representing intuition or a direct cosmic vision. These mythical traditions also feature early races of giants and titans that are said to have lived many eons ago and that featured an oversized eye on their foreheads. Another mythological figure, Bacchus, the Roman god of wine and revelry, carried a pine cone staff. The Greek god Dionysus also carried a similar pine cone staff. It is interesting to note that there is a huge sculpture of a pine cone in Vatican Square called the Court of the Pine Cone. Roman Catholic ornaments and candle holders are also decorated with pine cone designs. Interestingly, the biblical Jacob saw God face to face on the island of Pineal. It is said in scripture, quote, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore the light of the eye be single, thy whole body shall be filled with light," end quote. Around the world and throughout the ages, we see many other pine cone references and symbology. The Babylonian god Tammuz, for example, is pictured carrying a pine cone. The Mesoamerican god Quetzalcoatl is often carved in a pine cone shape with pine cones adorning his clothes. The Hindu religion depicts all of its gods with the third eye located on the forehead between the two eyes of the face. The dot between the eyes is also a common characteristic of Lord Buddha portraits. Another interesting fact that has gone unnoticed is that the top of the United States Capitol building dome and almost all state Capitol building domes are in the shape of a pineal gland. The dome is the brain, with the top structure representing the pineal gland. Coincidence? Maybe. However, inside the Washington, D.C. Capitol building dome are many interesting paintings depicting a close relationship to Freemasonry, replete with pine cone symbolism. The Masonic symbol is the beehive, and it also looks suspiciously like a pineal gland or a pine cone. This awakening of our minds and its consequences are echoed in ancient myths. Norse mythology, for example, tells us that the god Odin had to sacrifice one of his eyes, symbolizing the third eye of spiritual vision, to drink from the well of wisdom, that is, to experience cycles of matter. This story and others about the fallen angels or Adam and Eve have historical references to the early human stages of evolution and to the separation of the sexes toward middle development of the third root race during the time of Lemuria. During this epoch, the organ of intellect, the human brain, developed enormously, and divine instructors are said to have taught the arts, sciences, and secrets of nature to humanity still in its infancy. They imbued our inner being with primal wisdom as assisted by the third eye's direct vision of divine realities. According to the Theosophical movement, as this third root race of three-eyed giants became more physical and less spiritually innocent, the gods retreated and thereby leaving us to our own means. The timeless wisdom of this ancient lore provides vital knowledge about how humankind came into existence on Earth, and it lends interpretations of science with ancient sources. Those 19th century students of Theosophy gained a new perspective on humanity's past, and along with it, a roadmap to activating the third eye. Pineal gland and the occult. Astral travel, channeling, communicating with spirits, and other occult abilities have long been closely associated with the development of the light in the head. Occultists note that after beginning physical relaxation and concentration, focusing on the third eye, repeated practice will activate the pineal gland. This technique is achieved when in a state of relaxation by staring at a point in the middle of the forehead and without straining the muscles of the eye. Occult tradition holds that the proper way to activate the third eye is to balance the two opposite channels in the body, called Ida and Pingala, around a central vertical axis and spinal cord called the Sushumna. This balance of opposites creates a third force that unites the opposites and awakens the third eye. This then allows the practitioner to see their true essence, their spiritual self, and who they truly are. Helena Blavatsky, the co-founder of the Theosophical movement, described the role of the gland in an evolutionary context in her book called The Secret Doctrine in 1888. Quote, "The third eye acted no longer because man had sunk too deep in the mire of matter." She continued, quote, "The third eye, gradually petrified, soon disappeared. The eye was drawn deep into the head and is now buried under the hair, owing to the gradual disappearance of spirituality and increase in materiality. It became an atrophied organ. The third eye is dead, but it has not left behind a witness to its existence, the pineal gland," end quote. Madame Blavatsky went on to claim that the pineal gland is, quote, "the very key to the highest and divinest consciousness in man, his omniscient, spiritual, and all-embracing mind," end quote. "It is, quote, the pendulum which, once the clockwork of the inner man is wound up, carries the spiritual vision of the ego to the highest planes of perception, where the horizon opens before it becomes almost infinite, end quote. Blavatsky maintained that when the heart, the center of the human spiritual monad, vibrates in perfect harmony with the pineal gland, the two merge and become as one. This practice allowed a student to become an adept and give that person godlike powers with nearly unlimited vision. According to Theosophy belief, the fourth root race, or the Atlantean race, began as three-eyed beings and existed at the most material point in human physical evolution, where spirit and matter balanced on the arc of descent. These beings are said to have been huge in size, with titanic strength, and with great intelligence that enabled them to create advanced civilizations. But there was a price for the development of the brain, mind, five senses, personal ego, and lower passions. The third eye no longer acted as a spiritual organ, except in advanced humans whose third eye function in concert with their spiritual nature. Eventually, the third eye gradually petrified and disappeared, and was drawn deep into the head and rendered inactive. Even today, however, when the real self is active during trances and spiritual visions, this original eye is said to swell and expand. Similarly, in some Hindu traditions and other belief systems, the 7 chakras are centers of prana, or life force, and are the vital energy of our body. The mind and senses are paths for occult energies that work through various psychophysical centers or chakras, among the highest of which is the pineal gland. The chakras correspond to vital points in the body, and these centers continue to develop as we evolve towards more spiritual lives. Third eye and Buddha nature. Two great names in human history that are known to just about everyone are Jesus Christ and the Buddha. It is said that these two masters attained a level of enlightenment through evolution in their past lives, long before us, and toward the spiritual age of the fourth root race. They have been called ascended masters in the New Age movement. Similarly, Theosophy teaches that through spirit involution, that is, growth through looking inward, and physical evolution, all humans will ultimately attain the states of consciousness that these holy men achieved before us. In other words, it is inevitable that we will all once again obtain the powers and abilities of the ascended masters someday, when we learn to reactivate our pineal glands. To begin, if we want to see our own physical nature, or our Buddha nature, we have to see it through a different eye, that is, through a different perception. This eye is what we call the wisdom eye, or Buddha's eye, the heavenly eye, or what the esoteric Christians call the single eye. Jesus said, quote, "If thy eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light," end quote. This eye that is mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures, the Christian Bible, and the other scriptures are not physical eyes, but the single eye within our wisdom, within our ocean of consciousness. Actually, there is no I per se, but because we can see everything from heaven to hell, from this world to the Buddha's land, we call it the seeing with new eyes. In order to open this eye, we need someone who can show us how. Just like when we want to drive a car, we need someone who already knows how to drive the car to teach us. This is where the masters throughout the ages step in. According to author John Van Meter Jr., writing for the Theosophical University Press, quote, occultists and religious masters would agree that to the majority of people these days, inner vision must be awakened and acquired by artificial stimuli, an ability previously known to the archaic sages and population at large. Humanity passes through phases of light and darkness as it advances along the eternal march of time. Yet every phase of evolution reflects a profound intelligence and wisdom. The inner force of consciousness and their vital circulations work through the outer functions of sense organs and the body. So while the pineal gland has certain physiological activities in conjunction with the pituitary gland, together they regulate the rhythms of metabolism and growth. It is also the physical organ of intuition, inspiration, spiritual vision, and divine thought. As we progress on the arc of spiritual development, it is up to us individually to monitor and balance our energies. In most cases, it is unwise to consciously interfere with the third eye or other psychophysical centers because our present understanding is simply not sufficient. We still have much to learn as embryo gods, beings of consciousness and matter, as we evolve spiritually. The most effective way to develop the potentials which are expressed through the third eye is being deliberately exercising the finest unselfish qualities of character and intuition in our everyday life. Following this path, the rest will then come in its own time as we are ready to receive it. End quote. For eons, various ascended masters have said that with proper conditioning, the pineal gland can be the source of clairvoyant abilities and intuitive awareness. Similarly, in esoteric physiology, when we have a hunch, a deja vu experience, our pineal gland begins to vibrate. If spiritual disciples are used to increase and prolong this vibration, it may lead to the opening of the pineal gland situated in the middle of the brow. Whenever we have a hunch, this gland is vibrating gently. And when we have an inspiration or a flash of intuitive understanding, it vibrates even stronger, though still gently. How robustly it functions in each of us depends on how much we foster our spiritual capacities. When the pineal gland is active, it receives rays directly from the cosmic mind. Yet it has remained mostly inactive due to the work of the two eyes which overcame it. However, it is our destiny to once again activate this first eye. Evolution of the third eye. According to Madame Blavatsky in The Secret Doctrine, spiritual and psychic involution coincide with physical evolution, insomuch as the spiritual and psychic senses of the first human races became recessive during the development of the outer senses. the third eye was an actively used and much larger organ. That is, back when the spiritual element in humans reigned supreme over the somewhat nascent intellectual and psychic elements most used today. The cycle regressed towards the point where the physiological senses, including the median eye, atrophied the most psychically developed characteristics in humans. The pineal gland is still there, however, and with practice, it can be reactivated. Madame Blavatsky quoted an ancient commentary which recalled, quote, "There were 4 armed human creatures in those days of the male females, hermaphrodites, with 1 head, yet 3 eyes. They could see before them and behind them," end quote. She then cited that the third eye was originally at the back of the head. The statement that the last hermaphrodite of humanity was 4-armed unriddles the mystery of the representations of idols and the exoteric gods of ancient India, who are portrayed with many arms. In the ancient Greek Acropolis of Argos, there were reports of an exvanon. It was a rudely carved wooden statue attributed to Daedalus, representing a 3-eyed colossus, and it was consecrated to Zeus Triopus, who has 3 eyes. The head of the god has 2 eyes in its face and 1 above on the top of its forehead. It is considered the most archaic of all statues from the Western world that portrayed a third eye. The primitive third eye was probably functional before our present 2 eyes formed and became dominant. Interestingly, both the pineal gland and the 2 eyes project out from tissue layers of the embryonic brain, a common fact known in embryology. This is highly suggestive of the evolution of the organs and senses in general. Invertebrates and lower vertebrates evolved eyes of various kinds over hundreds of millions of years. Biology recognizes, at least in the most primitive vertebrates, the pineal gland as having been nature's first eye. One of the lowest vertebrates to have an eye is the larva of the sea squirt. There is also a primitive third eye structure in fishes, amphibians, and reptiles. Even birds have a light receptive pineal gland inside their skulls. Some dinosaurs, as judging by the opening in the tops of their skulls, may also have had huge third eyes. The later mammalian and mammal-like dinosaurs had these openings as well, but this third eye soon receded under the skull, as did the pineal gland found in humans and its most higher vertebrates. Contrary though, sheep still have a pineal gland that is directly affected by bright light. Humankind's early variations in size and shape were partly experiments in physical nature, as well as contrived with the help of divine intelligences, with the most physical phase producing the greatest variation of human types. In earlier terrestrial cycles or rounds, the human monads passed from the lowest to the highest through phases of mineral, plant, and animal life. During these early rounds, the human kingdom took on the basic patterns of plants and animals that existed in former embodiments of the earth. Using ethereal substances to fashion their vehicle, this racial recapitulation by astral humanity produced general prototypes found in animals and specialized along creation's particular lines that gradually diverged from the basic human stock. Yet vertebrate species, including humans, retain certain basic things in common, such as the third eye, the five senses, and even tails. Biology recognizes that the human embryo passes from single cell through states resembling the various kingdoms. For example, there is a fish stage with gill slits, a reptilian one with a tail, and multiple mammalian stages. It is rare, but some children are born with residual gill clefts or visible tails. The question then is, why are these variations still manifesting? The answer appears to be that the basic memory of our early evolution is still impressed within our primordial protoplasm and perhaps remains encoded in our genes as well. Research indicates that humans have extra DNA that is stored, but appears to not be used directly. Okay, well, we're about to come up on the first break here, and I think I shall save the rest of this for the top of the next hour, starting with melatonin regulator. But while we have a little bit of time here, I want to read a few captions from some of the images in the back of this chapter of the pineal gland. And the first one starts with the Assyrian winged god Nimrod holding a pine cone representing the pineal gland, or the power of regeneration, traceable to Tammuz of Babylon. Pine cones and pine cone staffs are very common on pagan statues, and as art symbols represents fertility and regeneration. As I mentioned, Dionysus, an ancient Greek god, carried the pine cone staff as a fertility symbol. The next picture I show is a pre-Inca or Incan face mask with a great big serpent coming out of the forehead, similar to a picture right next to it, which is the tomb mask of King Tutankhamun, which also has a large serpent coming right out of the top of the forehead. Both the pre-Incan culture and ancient Egyptians used the animal on the forehead motif to evoke the power of their third eye. Both cultures understood that we can create a trance-like state where we awaken our so-called mind's eye or inner eye, which is a symbol of spirituality, illumination, and though thought of as existing near the forehead, above and between the two eyes, exactly where the animal is placed. Melatonin regulator. Melatonin is one of the most powerful hormones that the pineal gland regulates. The pineal gland appears to receive signals from regions in the brain directly affected by the impulses traveling down the optic nerves, and it secretes melatonin, present also in the retina of the two eyes. This hormone appears to be involved in circadian rhythms, also known as the sleep and awake cycles, a process scientists do not yet fully understand. For most people, depending on age, the secretion of melatonin begins between 9:30 and 10:30 p.m. and induces sleepiness. In most people, melatonin reaches peak levels between 1 and 2 a.m. and drops to its lowest levels at midday. The pineal gland also controls reproduction, sleep functions, and motor activity, blood pressure, the immune system, the pituitary and thyroid glands, cellular growth, body temperature, and many other vital functions. All of these depend on a balanced melatonin cycle. Melatonin is made exclusively in the pineal gland and is composed of the same tryptamine base materials as pinoline. Melatonin induces mitosis. It does this by sending a small electrical signal up the double helix of the DNA, which instigates an 8 Hertz proton signal that enables the hydrogen bonds to the steps to zip open so the DNA can replicate. Theosophical literature, however, maintains that in addition to its physiological functions, this pea-sized gland at the base of the skull is an important psychophysiological center involved with such activities as clairvoyance and intuition. Ancient Indian literature recognizes the pineal gland as being a key activator of the crown chakra. Light activates the full potential of the brain that can bring forth infinite inherent powers that have remained dormant for millennia. The pineal gland is sensitive to light, and our bodies convert solar energy into physical nourishment. The sun's energy is a source that powers the brain, and the human eyes are the only organ where the sunshine can enter the human body. With the eyes being the sun's entryway to the human brain, the age-old healing ritual of solar gazing enables us to receive nourishment, healing, and spiritual enlightenment. Solar gazing was practiced by the ancient Egyptians, Aztecs, Greeks, Mayans, and by some Native American tribes. In the East, it was practiced by Tibetan monks and is utilized by traditions like yoga, qigong, and tai chi. Modern devoted solar gazers claim better physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health, as well as being able to sustain themselves on solar energy alone for very long periods of time without eating food. This practice is called sun eating. Strict long-term fasting under the control and observation of various scientific and medical teams revealed a regeneration of the brain's gray cells, plus the expansion of the pineal gland rather than its typical shrinking. Solar gazing is done only during the first hour after sunrise or the last hour before sunset, when the sun's rays are most gentle to the eyes. If gazing is not done around dawn or sunset and is performed at other hours, it will result in serious damage to the retina. Once the body is sufficiently aligned with the spiritual force, light becomes food, hence the breatharian idea that uses breath to stimulate the pineal gland by bringing in large volumes of oxygen and the life force called prana into the bloodstream. Proper breath work through the nose oxygenates the brain. Oxygen-drenched blood causes the pineal gland to resonate, vibrate, and even grow in size. Tryptamine trippiness. In his best-selling book, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, psychedelic researcher Dr. Rick Strassman explained how the pineal gland, quote, is quite active in synthesizing compounds related to serotonin, an important neurotransmitter in the brain, end quote. Neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers allowing communication among individual nerve cells. Most typical psychedelic drugs, such as LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, and DMT, are active in brain sites, which are also affected by serotonin. Marijuana, too, among other psychedelics, facilitates the activation of the pineal gland and helps activate the third eye, directing our spiritual evolution to wholeness. In addition, most of these drugs are similar to serotonin in their chemical structure. Eating cannabis can also activate the mind's eye. Dr. Strassman states that most of the above substances belong to the tryptamine class of drugs and proposed that the pineal gland produces one or two endogenous tryptamines found in human blood and cerebrospinal fluid. This latter fluid continually bathes the brain, and compounds found in it most likely affect brain function, end quote. Strassman also explains how psychedelic drugs, meditation states, spontaneous near-death experiences, and other phenomenon which may induce stereotypical death or rebirth, the paradisical euphoria, or a hellish state, are operating via the pineal gland. The universal mystic vision of God is an all-consuming white light. On a physiological level, it can be an experience that is produced from chemical reactions in the pineal gland, which is known to be particularly light sensitive. Light, as it passes through eyes and to the pineal gland, forms a triad that directly controls and regulates normal or altered states of consciousness, as well as many bodily functions. These three factors are also directly related to or implicated in mystical states and the psychedelic experience. Visions of white light are not only associated with mysticism and psychedelic explorations, they are also a prevalent image as recorded by those who have had near-death experiences. A reason for this reoccurring theme in near-death states, according to Dr. Strassman, occurs after death as the pineal gland shuts down when some of the present chemicals turn into psychedelic drugs. Taken one step further, the pineal gland not only plays an important role in death, but also in birth, and possibly even in rebirth, according to Dr. Strassman. The pineal gland first becomes visible in the human fetus at the same time as the clear differentiation of the fetus into female or male gender becomes apparent. The time for both of these events is 49 days, a period of time, according to several Buddhist texts, that the life force of a deceased individual coalesces around its next corporeal existence, known as the bardo. Indeed, the pineal is the first gland to be formed in the fetus, and it is distinguishable only after about a month of development. When we were infants, we were each born with a fully opened third eye, able to witness the power and glory of the universe. From a subatomic perspective to the infinity of the galaxies, we were able to see life in all its glory and to appreciate its wisdom and bounty. But as we grow older, we are conditioned by parents, teachers, managers, peers, the media, and everyone else around us to cover our third eye with layer upon layer of illusion and confusion until our third eye was closed and our inner witness goes dark, leaving us empty to the world's wonders and the wisdom that our mystic sight may have delivered. Thus, if life force enters through the pineal gland, this manifestation of comings and goings would suggest the release of psychedelic tryptamines. This would then influence the visionary experiences associated with near-death and near-birth states. The vital functions of the pineal gland. Extensive medical studies in the 1970s and 1980s revealed a profound scientific understanding of the pineal gland in terms of its chemical properties. In general, the pineal is a very active organ, commanding the second highest blood flow available in the body, only after the kidneys, and equal in volume to the pituitary gland. The pineal is supplied with the best blood, oxygen, and nutrient mix available in the human anatomy, second only to our kidneys, whose function is to filter the blood of impurities. It has the highest absorption of phosphorus in the whole body, and the second highest absorption of iodine after the thyroid. No other part of the brain contains so much serotonin or is capable of reducing melatonin. A unique anatomical feature is that the pineal gland is an unpaired midline organ in the brain, which alone, among equivalent organs, has resisted encroachment by the corpus callosum. Located directly in the center of the brain cavity, it is actually outside the blood-brain barrier and is therefore not even a part of the brain. Innervated by the atomic nervous system, it shows extreme variability in size, form, and internal structure between one individual and the next. There also seem to be considerable functional connection between the pineal and the pituitary glands, in that their actions tend to be antagonistic, the pineal being inhibitory in relation to the pituitary. When an LSD level is measured in the brain, it turns out that it concentrates mostly in the pineal and pituitary glands, secondarily in the limbic system structures such as the hippocampus, amygdala, and the fornix, and lastly in the hypothalamus. The pineal synthesizes and releases melatonin and perhaps other hormones in response to norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter released from its post-ganglionic sympathetic nerves. As such, the pineal is a neuroendocrine transducer, like the adrenal medulla. The rate at which norepinephrine is released reduces when light activates the retinal photoreceptors and increases when the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated, for example, by hypoglycemia or when under severe stress. The pineal contains a pair of enzymes, hydroxylase O-methyltransferase and endo-N-methyltransferase, both of which are able to convert serotonin into a number of potent hallucinogens. If a person increases the concentration of pineal serotonin and blocks its normal enzymatic inactivation, it becomes a substance for other pineal enzymes, such as HIOMT-NINMT, methyl transfer enzymes that catalyze the transfer of a methyl group from one compound to another. Thus, for example, serotonin can be converted to 5-methoxy-N and N-dimethyl tryptamine by these enzymes, which are a hallucinogen similar to DMT, as found in kawa, a substance the Amazonian Indians add to their Banasteropsis brew. Normally, serotonin is inactivated by the mitochondrial enzyme monoamine oxidase, MAO, that converts it into an inactive metabolite, MAO, is the major enzyme involved in the breakdown and inactivation of serotonin, dopamine, ephedrine, and neopinephrine. Thus, any enzyme that interferes with MAO will cause a buildup of serotonin levels, leading the pineal gland to producing endogenous hallucinogens. Hormonal alkaloids are serotonin antagonists, CNS stimulants, hallucinogens, and are extremely potent short-term MAO inhibitors. A personal portal. The pineal is known to generate its own magnetic field because it contains magnetite, and it interacts with the Earth's magnetic field. The charged particles of the solar wind at dawn stimulate the pineal gland. This is why the period between 4 and 6 a.m. is the best time to meditate, and why sunrise is the best time to sun gaze, a practice called sun eating. At these times, the pineal stimulates the pituitary to secrete human growth hormones. This is why many sun gazers have reported rapid nail and hair growth, restoration of hair color, and ability to stop eating, and general rejuvenation. When fully active, the pineal gland is a step-down transformer that converts the extremely rapid electromagnetic motions of our light bodies into frequencies that our physical brain can interpret in the form of mental images. And as such, the pineal gland is a self-reflective optical organ. It looks at itself inwardly from all directions and sees through prismatic calcium carbonate crystals that coat the receptors, creating an inner light of mental images and created by our light bodies into a light language. Dr. Marcel Joseph Vogel, in various experiments, demonstrated that because humans tend to think in patterns, crystalline growth could be modified by patterns of human thought waves. He also showed that crystalline growth could be modified by living in a state of love. These experiments also correspond to Dr. Masaru Emoto's work related to how human emotions affect the structure of water molecules. Our thought patterns travel energetically with certain known frequencies. For example, fear-filled patterns of thought carry a low frequency, while love-filled thought patterns carry a high frequency. Because thought waves travel energetically and at certain frequencies, they can be collected, stored, and transmitted by crystals, like the microcrystals located in our pineal glands. Furthermore, crystals are shown to exhibit a capacity for storing memory, just as crystals can be used to hold a computer software program. They can also be used to hold patterns of thought. In this manner, a habit of fearful or loving patterns of thought are stored within our brain's hard drive, thereby encouraging us to repeat these patterns. Therefore, a history of fearful thinking creates a habit of living in fear, whereas a history of loving thought creates a habit of living in an atmosphere of love. Our pineal glands serve as personal portals in which our multidimensional selves can reside in our earth reality. It is also a portal through which each of us returns the myriad realities of our greater selves. Our pineal portal is filled with a sort of liquid light contained within microcrystals of calcite. A crystal is a solid substance in which the atoms, molecules, or ions are arranged in orderly, repeating patterns. The microcrystals of our pineal glands operate much in the same way as an old-fashioned crystal radio. However, most of the frequencies received via the pineal gland are outside of the human range of perception, and they can be perceived as colors as well as sounds. Because of this, many of the messages we receive from the higher dimensions are hues and tones. It has also been predicted that future medicines and natural cures will be comprised of colors, sounds, frequencies, and vibrations. Again, if our thought patterns are fearful, they carry a low vibration frequency, and that calibrates our pineal portal to operate at a lower frequency of light. On the other hand, when our thoughts resonate to the frequency of love, we calibrate our pineal portals to the highest frequencies. As we gain mastery over our thoughts, our pineal portal can become calibrated automatically to the higher frequencies of loving thoughts. Once there, we will be able to translate more of these light and sound messages into a new language of light. It is reported that when people first open their pineal portal, they primarily receive auditory messages. If the desire is to convert these messages into the language of light, it will be necessary to raise the frequency of sound by 40 octaves. This can be accomplished by understanding that when a person spiritually expands, they also surrender to their soul. Since all energy is related to the speed of light, Einstein's E=mc² theorem helps explain that when two frequencies meet, the higher frequency will raise the resonance of the lower. At that point, when we surrender to our higher spiritual selves, we allow cosmic light and unconditional love to enter our pineal portals, and this energy raises the resonance of our brain waves, consciousness, emotions, thought patterns, and perceptions. Hence, by surrendering to our spirit, we can raise our consciousness enough to perceive the higher octaves of the light language. In fact, it is common to experience a download of this light language once a person has fully opened and activated their pineal portal. This may be the enlightenment moment as described by the Buddha. Another important point regarding our personal portal's ability to receive light messages is that our pineal gland's microcrystals have piezoelectric properties. Piezoelectricity is the charge that accumulates in certain solid materials such as crystals, certain ceramics, bones, DNA, and various proteins. It is because of this property that certain crystals are used for pressure gauges, oscillators, resonators, and wave stabilizers. Crystals also have the ability to rotate the plane of light polarization into the higher frequency of ultraviolet. Ultraviolet is the highest frequency in the third dimensional light spectrum, and therefore serves as a gateway into the higher dimensions. Scientists have theorized that the global system for mobile telecommunications, GSM, waves constitute a new mechanism of transduction, thereby affecting the pineal membrane via microcrystals. GSM is a digital technology that enables us up to 8 simultaneous telephone conversations to be held on the same channel. This indicates the potential of our pineal portal to receive multiple messages within the time frame of now. In fact, our pineal gland controls our focus and attention within the inner worlds of sleep, meditation, and the outer worlds of physical reality. This ability to perceive multiple messages can assist us when tuning in to our inner selves, while simultaneously maintaining a connection with our physical lives. Our brain's cerebrium is our personal sleeping giant, and it is the center of our earth vessel's electromagnetic resonating power. The pineal gland is the positive contact point, and it acts as a neuroendocrine transducer, which transmits its multidimensional information to the pituitary gland. Then, each of our pituitary glands acts as the negative contact point to receive the information, and it then distributes it throughout the cerebrium. Next, the cerebral cortex gathers the various frequencies of information into the brain cells that are designated to convert electromagnetic frequencies into electrical currents. These electrical currents dictate our thoughts, actions, and behaviors, and are thus projected out into our reality via our intentions and actions. Looked at another way, the pineal gland can be considered an organic superconducting resonator located within each of us. Researcher Ananda Bozeman claims it potentiates DNA as a multi-dimensional transducer of holographic projection through hadron toroids, and is implicated as assisting people with staying youthful. DMT is naturally produced in small quantities in the human brain, and it has been hypothesized that DMT is produced in the pineal gland. The DMT acts on the tRNA messengers that carry out the protein synthesis for the DNA, or essentially the rebuilding of our body image and organs. In 1972, the guru Satyananda observed, quote, "All psychic systems have their physical aspect in the body. With Ajna chakra, the physical equivalent is the pineal gland, which has long baffled doctors and scientists as to its precise function. Yogis, who are scientists of the subtle mind, have always spoken of telepathy as a siddhi, a psychic power for thought, communication, and clairaudience, etc. The medium of such siddhis is Ajna chakra, and its physical terminus is the pineal gland, which is connected to the brain. It has been stated by great yogis that the pineal gland is the receptor and sender of the subtle vibrations which carry thoughts and psychic phenomena throughout the cosmos. End quote. The human pineal gland not only produces the neurohormone melatonin, one of the body's most potent antioxidants, but also the revolutionary picoline 6-methoxy tetrahydrobeta carboline, or 6-MeO-THBC. Picoline is superior to melatonin in aiding DNA replication. Picoline can make superconductive elements within the body. It encourages cell division by resonating with the very pulse of life, 8 cycles per second. The pulse DNA uses to replicate. This 8 hertz resonance was measured in healers by Andrea Purich in the late 1970s, and it has been known of by masters for eons. Rethinking the pineal gland. The pineal gland looks like a pine cone, as described earlier, and the pine cone image has been used all over the world as a reference to this amazing gland of extrasensory perception. As shown, the visual usage of the all-seeing eye can be traced back to the ancient Egyptian symbol of the Eye of Horus, and in more recent times, on the back of the US $1 bill. The Eye of Horus is also known as the Eye of Ra, which is the Egyptian sun god. In Hindu traditions, it is associated with the extrasensory third eye, wherein the perception of the world is no longer limited to the physical senses. The Hindu deity Shiva and many others are portrayed with a third eye on their forehead. The pineal gland is linked with the crown chakra, also called the 1,000-petaled lotus, that downloads and transforms energy from the ether into our consciousness. In Taoism and many traditional Chinese religious sects, such as Chan, the third eye training involves focusing attention with the eyes closed and in various qigong postures on the point between the eyebrows. The goal of this training is to allow students to have an ability to tune into the right vibrations of the universe and thereby gain a solid foundation toward more advanced meditation levels. In theory, the third eye is situated between the two eyes, and it expands up to the middle of the forehead when opened. It is exciting to see modern science confirm what age-old customs have represented and practiced for centuries. The pineal gland, viewed historically as a sphincter to control the flow of thought and as the seat of the soul, and depicted more recently as a neuroendocrine transducer organ, now promises to portray more complex physiological functions than originally believed. Plus, it portends to reveal a more extensive implication in the pathological processes that once deemed possible. Future investigations should be directed towards a better comprehension of the functions of numerous neglected neurotransmitters and biological substances that are found in the pineal gland. The result of these investigations may bring forth a multifunctional significance for the pineal gland in not only the temporal arrangement of various reproductive events in mammals, the rhythmical thermoregulatory process in some ectotherms, and in the nightly pallor response in amphibians. It could also bring major changes in the realm of human suffering, such as seizure disorders, sleep disorders, and behavioral abnormalities. Scientists now confirm what the masters of old have long maintained, that the pineal gland is sensitive to electromagnetic energy, more specifically to the Earth's natural electromagnetic field. A huge change in the Earth's magnetic field then could either have the effect of awakening the gland and its higher functions on a mass level, or have the opposite effect and close it down altogether. The recent discovery of magnetite clusters near the pineal gland seem to give humans the residual ability to orient to geomagnetic directional cues, similar to homing pigeons. But this ability is seemingly lost with pineal dysfunction. Dr. Graham Blackwell observed that the human pineal gland has been found to contain large numbers of calcite microcrystals that bear a striking resemblance to calcite crystals found in the inner ear. Those found in the inner ear have been shown to exhibit the quality of piezoelectricity. If those found in the pineal gland also have this quality, then this would provide a means whereby an external electromagnetic field might directly influence the brain. Calcite microcrystals can be seen on the pineal gland under a scanner electron microscope, and according to orthopedic surgeon and electrophysiologist researcher Robert O. Becker, quote, "In light of this work, the fact that 10 hertz is also the dominant alpha frequency of the EEG in all animals becomes another significant bit of evidence that every creature is hooked up to the earth electromagnetically through its DC system," end quote. A research group under Indian biophysicist Sandra Subrahmanyam reported that human EEG not only responded to the micropulsations, but also responded differently, depending on which way the subject's head was facing in relation to the Earth's field. Oddly enough, however, head direction had no effect if the subject was a yogi. Their studies revealed the following. Quote, "The relationship has been conclusively proven by recent studies of the pineal gland. This tiny organ in the center of the cranium has turned out to be more than the vaguely defined third eye of the mystics. It produces melatonin and serotonin, two neurohormones that, among many other functions, directly control all of the biocycles. The lamprey, akin to the ancestor of all vertebrates, as well as certain lizards, has an actual third eye, close to the head's surface and directly responsive to light, instead of the blind pineal found in other vertebrates. The eminent British anatomist J.Z. Young has recently shown that this organ controls the daily rhythm of skin color changes that these animals undergo. This gland in your brain is able to see the emitted colors at different levels of magnetism. There are different magnetic fields all over the earth, so the gland may be able to receive signals through these magnetic forces by recognizing different colors and patterns. This is one of the first scientific experiments that has shown a mechanism that proves how your brain may receive signals from outside of the body. For some time, it has been known that animals recognize magnetic symbols. Sharks can sense magnetic vibrations in the water. Some schools of fish work in the same way. The fish can sense when other fish move, and the whole school turns together accordingly. Birds are also known to fly back to faraway places by using the magnetic field as a guide. Biology shows us that life can recognize magnetic fields in some way. So why don't humans seem to have these skills? The most important point is that very small magnetic fields influence the pineal gland. Several research groups have shown that applying a magnetic field of half a gauss or less, orientated so as to add or to subtract from the Earth's normal field, will increase or decrease production of pineal melatonin and serotonin. Other groups have observed physical changes in the gland cells in response to such fields. The experiments were controlled for illumination, since it has been known for several years that shining a light on the head somehow modifies the gland's hormone output, even though it is buried so deeply within the head in most common vertebrates that, as far as we know, it can't react directly to the light. End quote. The advent of the microscope has allowed us to objectively observe things that are infinitely small. Conversely, the telescope allows us to see the infinitely distant. If the pineal gland allows us to see the ultra of all things, then we should study Oriental yoga practices and seek to develop this wonderful gland. The yogis of India have practice through which a person can obtain a special superfunction of the pineal gland. When reaching that point, and without much effort, humans can then perceive the ultra. Activating the third eye. Considered the most powerful and highest source of ethereal energy available to humans, the pineal gland has always been most revered in initiating psychic powers, including clairvoyance and the ability to see auras. To activate the third eye and perceive higher dimensions, the pineal and the pituitary must vibrate in unison, which, as mentioned, can be achieved through meditation, chanting, and the practice of sungazing. When activated, the pineal gland becomes the line of communication within the energy body and also with the higher planes. The crown chakra then reaches down into the brain until its vortex touches the pineal gland. Prana, or pure energy, is received through this energy center in the head. With enough practice, the vibration level of the astral body is raised, thus allowing it to separate from the physical. When a correct relationship is established between the individual's personality operating through the pituitary and its connection to the soul, as in opening consciousness through the pineal, a magnetic field is created. The negative and positive forces then interact, and when they become strong enough, they create a light in the head. With this light in the head activated, astral projectors can withdraw themselves from the physical body, carrying the light with them, but always retaining a silver cord back to the body. Toning sacred sounds also helps cancel out unwanted vibrations and activates the pineal gland. In practice, while centered in the pineal body, including a loving embrace of yourself, we then may call upon the collective consciousness of the planet into our pineal. What a person should feel next is a quiet oneness with no separation from anything. One must let go to move into this experience. Spiritual activity results from a stimulation of the pineal gland. One can consciously activate the vascular monoamine transporter, VMAT2, or the God gene, by saying a prayer, toning, repeating a mantra, or doing specific meditations. Scientists have detected a certain gene that is awakened in spiritual people, but they have no idea what causes the VMAT2 DNA gene to be active in some people, yet remain inactive in others. Spiritual activity appears to activate VMAT2. Spiritual activity in large groups activates even more VMAT2. The more powerful the spiritual techniques, the greater the activation of VMAT2 and other spiritual energies. We all know that energetic vibrations, such as sound, can break glass. Sound also generates electromagnetic energy effects on a person's body. Most sound vibrations produced by people such as speaking, playing music, running vehicles, and regular outdoor sounds do not seem to activate the VMAT2. However, the reception of prayers, the repetition of prayers, I should say, certain tones, and chanted mantras do activate VMA2 and other spiritual energies in the DNA of the practitioner. Certain sound frequencies also appear to stimulate the production of psychoactive substances in the pineal gland without the use of drugs. People with a highly active pineal gland seem to be able to recall their dreams more vividly than others, and they often report seeing visions and paranormal activity on a larger scale. The wave vibrations of the sun also cause the secretion of feel-good hormones like serotonin, beta endorphins, and dopamine, especially during sun gazing at dawn or dusk. The endocrine glands are known to secrete other hormones during sun gazing. This behavior creates not only a high, but also greater energy, longevity, and an experience of samadhi, or higher consciousness. At dawn, the negatively charged pineal and the positively charged pituitary combine their essences to create a light in the head when meditating. This light has been seen by mystics, initiates, prophets, and shamans throughout the ages. They refer to it as an experience of God, or that of a universal intelligence. For those interested in opening their pineal gland for optimum usage, here are a few starting point guidelines. First, start by meditating on where you sense the pineal gland is located. Sit quietly and visualize this gland between the hemispheres of the brain. Picture it as glowing in white golden light and try to sense it tingling in the center of your brain. Similar to those who raise their kundalini in Eastern traditions, it is recommended to vocalize the soft toning sound Om while in meditation, during sun gazing, or during any chakra raising practice. It also helps to listen to binaural beats, or ideally isochronic tones, both of which can be made to stimulate activity in the pineal gland. Do this daily for a half hour or longer. Many proponents of the ancient technique of sun gazing report not only of the healing benefits to common illnesses, but also in obtaining superhuman abilities, such as advanced telepathy and going completely without the need for food. According to sun-gazing experts, food is not actually needed to maintain the body. Only energy, and sun eating provides that energy. To strengthen the pineal gland in your everyday life, try to avoid all water or products that contain fluoride. Sodium fluoride is known to be in tap water, fluoridated toothpaste, inorganic fruits and vegetables, showers without filters, any soda drinks, artificial food and processed food, plus red meats. Instead, drink only spring, distilled, or reverse osmosis purified water. Buy a shower filter, go to whole food markets and buy organic fruits, veggies, and toothpaste without fluoride. It has been shown that fluoride calcifies the pineal gland. It is also possible to add detoxers, stimulants, and supplements into your diet to increase pineal function. Research first, then purchase and consume the following products: chlorella, spirulina, blue-green algae, cilantro, iodine, vitamin C, niacin, ginseng, borax, shilajit, D3, mucuna, cysteine, calcium benzoate clay, chlorophyll, blue skate liver oil, zeolite, and the monatomic elements or orms. The best food for pineal function include raw cacao, goji berries, watermelon, bananas, honey, coconut oil, hemp seeds, seaweed, and noni juice. Wheatgrass juice is a phenomenal energy-created food, and the body treats it like synthetic sunlight. There are some researchers who promote the natural ethnogen path, but this is clearly not for everyone and are illegal for consumption in many countries. Natural ethnogens include ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, peyote, changa, cannabis, salvia, DMT, and other substances. And finally, do not forget the crystals: amethyst, moldavite, quartz, herkimer, diamond, and other crystals seem to work best for people who don't want to consume anything. Just holding crystals in the hand during meditation can help activate and stimulate the pineal gland. What we are experiencing today is the death of the old world order, a human-made system that has long been in control of the planet's people and resources. It is the death of these beliefs and prejudices of ignorance and the corrupt social structures that upheld them for so long that we await. This shift is also associated with a transformative awakening of the pineal gland in the brain, our central connection to the source field, as described by author David Wilcock. Humanity is at the greatest crossroads of possibilities ever witnessed on Earth. We can follow our destiny and become a true interdimensional race, or we can remain stuck in our old ways. Opening our pineal gland serves as a gateway into the higher dimensions. Those who control the information and information flow, however, want you to never know that, because then you will see through the illusion they pass over to us as reality. Similarly, they also profit from our sickness, which is the direction we will venture into the next chapter.